Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Cooking with Jim. No, I'm just kidding, but I am cooking today. Someone asked the question, Jim, what do you eat? Aren't you a vegetarian or vegan? And the answer to that question is yes, I like to use the words whole foods plant-based. I don't particularly like the word vegan, but I prefer whole foods plant-based. And so it's been about over a year now since switching over to that diet. And I haven't been perfect at it. I'm still transitioning and learning how to switch over to changing what I like to eat. And so, but yes, what do I eat? And it's for some people to then, switch over to a whole foods plant-based diet. There is a lot of those questions. Well, then what do you eat? And when you eliminate meat and dairy, and not only that, you eliminate a lot of the sugar and oils and things like butter and the creams and all those things that we're used to eating, for me, for the most part, has been eliminated. And I'm still trying to fine-tune this diet. And, but yes, it is an adjustment. And as I've said in previous videos, the reason why I switched over to a whole foods plant-based diet was for health reasons and just listening to the doctors out there, reading the literature, listening to the so-called experts and looking at all the data out there on how so much of our diseases and chronic ailments that we have, especially here in the West and in the United States, a lot of the issues that we have with our health can be contributed to our diet, to what we are eating. And I think a lot of people can agree in that regard, especially with the processed food, the junk food, the fast food. It just isn't food. I've even heard the expression, if it wasn't a food 100 years ago, it isn't a food today. And so yes, a lot of the things that we are consuming are just not good for us. And so I have decided for my own health, and after reading and studying and looking at other cultures that don't have a lot of the diseases that we have in the West, and I look at their diet, and they're not completely whole foods plant-based. They do consume some animal-based proteins, fish, chicken, and things of that nature, but they don't eat it as we in America eat it. You know, when you can ask your average family, what are you having for dinner? And it's usually a meat. We're having chicken, we're having meatloaf, we're having fish, we're having hamburgers, we're having hot dogs, we're having veal, we're having pork loin, we're having fill in the blank, chicken wings, barbecue ribs. Notice that. Meat, 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 and more meat. All this meat, in my humble opinion, is not good. It's not healthy. And the research supports it. And I know those who are on the carnivore diets aren't going to like that. But from my research, my data, from my personal experience from switching over to a whole foods plant-based diet, boy, I tell you, I feel a lot better and have more energy. And so far, I feel pretty good. And I think if you talk to anybody who's had diabetes, or they've suffered from being overweight, heart disease, and when they too switched over to this diet, they've had good success and results. So that speaks for itself. And I understand that this isn't for everybody. So I am making today a Middle Eastern chickpea stew. And I thought, well, let me go through this recipe with you. This is the first time I've made this one. I've made other soups and stews and recipes. So this one, I thought, well, why not share with you the making of this as an example of a whole foods plant-based meal where there's no meat, there's no dairy in it whatsoever, and just has a nice group list of ingredients as an example of what you can eat. And my mornings a lot of times is oats. I like oatmeal, and you can put bananas or raspberries or blueberries in with your oats and mix it with flaxseed or chia seed or wheat germ or bran, and you can mix that in and make a nice breakfast. Some people make what's called a tofu scramble using tofu, almost like a scrambled eggs with some bread, and they can eat that for breakfast. Lunches can be sandwiches. It could be a nice, flatbread with hummus, and layer it with your whatever you want vegetable-wise, cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes, that kind of thing. And then dinners can be, what I'm making here, can be a stew. So there's a lot of cookbooks out there, whole foods plant-based cookbooks, and also YouTube channels dedicated to whole foods plant-based diets, and they share recipes. Or if you're on other social media platforms, Facebook, they're always sharing wonderful recipes that are whole foods plant-based, and so much healthier, so much better for us. We're not clogging our arteries with all that fat, cholesterol, and you're getting the fiber in your diet, which is so important. Our microbiome in our gut, and I think we forget that. We're eating for two people. Not only are you eating for you, but you're eating for your gut and keeping our gut health in check. And that includes feeding it green things, and things like sweet potatoes or lentils or onion, cilantro, garbanzo beans. This here's chopped spinach. These are just some of the ingredients. Garlic, ginger, oh my, and all these great spices. And that we can make these wonderful, flavorful, tasty recipes. And it doesn't have to be some bland, terrible way to eat. And you can enjoy new foods. You don't necessarily have to eat the things that we're so used to. We can switch and change our mind and change our palate on what we like. The reason why we like a lot of the things we like is because we were brought up that way. And we can now, it is possible that we can train ourselves to eat a different way. And so, but yes, this is my kitchen. I don't know if you can see behind me, there is an Instapot right there, and I'm currently cooking some, it's called farro. It's like a barley, and so I'm cooking that in there. I love all my different grains, from barley to buckwheat to all the variety of rices, from white rice to brown rice to purple rice. And I can cook all that right there in that Instapot. Or I have the crock pot, and I have cooked many meal in this crock pot. And I cook a variety of beans, and sometimes I will put beans in there and set it on low, 10 hours on low, put it in there at nighttime, and when I wake up in the morning, I've got beans cooked in there. And you can cook a variety of beans, pinto beans, whatever you want. And I love the pinto beans, and then they cook overnight. I get a masher and I mash them, and then that's material for making burritos. And then I'll get the burrito, get the tortilla, whatever type that you'd like, and put in the beans and, excuse me, and whatever vegetables or whatever you want to put in there. And that's a meal too. So kind of gives you an idea of what I eat. And being a single man, I don't get too fancy. A lot of times, like today being a Sunday, I will cook up some things, cook the rice. I can bake some potatoes, sweet potatoes, make the stews. I can even have like something cooking in the crock pot. I've made a lasagna in there, and then I have all this stuff prepped, and then I just pack it up, put it in containers, and I can put it in my refrigerator, and I have something to eat throughout the week. And I just live basic and simple. And sometimes I'll just pull out some rice, a baked potato, some lentils, some broccoli, put it in a heat it all up, piece of bread, and that's a meal. And it's all whole foods, plant-based. So there you go. But I'm going to cut up all these ingredients. Let me get it all chopped up, cut up, put in some bowls here, and we'll go ahead and we'll put all this together, and I'll show you how I'm making this Middle Eastern chickpea stew. This is ginger. I'm mincing it, cutting it up, and getting it in a minced fashion. I will do the same thing with the garlic. And let's see, this is going to require onion, ginger, garlic, curry powder, turmeric, coriander, cardamom, which I don't have that spice. I don't know what cardamom is. Cinnamon, cloves, some fresh orange juice, vegetable stock, chickpeas, lentils, crushed tomatoes, sweet potato, red wine vinegar, Swiss chard, which I don't have any Swiss chard, so I was debating on whether or not I was going to use spinach or will I use kale. I'm probably going to use the kale, or maybe the combination of both. So that's how I do some of these recipes. If I don't have something, I'll modify it in my own way, or I'll just simply leave it out. Let's see, what else does this have? Cayenne pepper, cilantro, which I do have. I love cilantro. I eat it with my burritos, whatever. I put it in just about everything. And then you can eat this with brown rice or quinoa or whatever you want, which I'm making the farro. So anyway, I'm going to continue to do some chopping and cutting and get all this stuff. I still got to chop up this sweet potato. Got the garbanzo beans. I got the vegetable stock and the juice, the crushed tomatoes, which I'm not going to use this whole can. This is the only size they had. And I got my spices over there by the pot. Let's get all this and throw it in the pot and cook it. Okay, folks, we're getting ready to put this Middle Eastern chickpea stew together. We've got a lot of our ingredients now, or all of our ingredients together here. So the first thing in the pot. Some of you remember these old pots? Yep, I still use it. And in a large pot, combine the onion. We're going to combine the onion. Get that in there. my cloves and garlic, which I minced, and I just put it all in the same bowl. There's that. And it is saying cook over medium heat until tender, about 5 minutes. Crank open the gas stove here. Yes. There we go. Make sure you guys can see this thing. All right. So we got this going. Let's see, timer. 5 minutes. Let's do it. Then the next thing I have to add is the curry powder, turmeric, coriander, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. But I don't have the coriander or the cardamom, but I do have turmeric, cinnamon, and cloves. So that's what's in here. So I'm going to use what I have. And hopefully this pan is going to be sufficient here as we're cooking with Jim in his kitchen. What does this man eat on a Whole Foods plant-based? So this is just a little example. What do we got? 3 minutes? Let me show you something here. This is my farro. Can you see that in there? I had some. I was hungry. See that? That's the consistency of farro. It's like a barley. And you got a nice hot steaming bowl of this. It's very, very delicious. Very delicious. And so I eat that, you know, like a rice. I put it in soup, or I just eat it by itself, or with beans, or whatever you want. And so that's an example there. Medium heat. I don't want to burn this stuff up, but I can smell. If you got smell-o-vision, you can smell these onions and garlics and cloves smelling up the kitchen in here. And I don't get too crazy about it. It's not an exact science. Sometimes I'm successful with some of this stuff. Sometimes it's turns out okay. It's edible, you know. And sometimes as a single man, single person, as a lot of you singles out there, you just kind of keep it simple. You don't do a whole lot. You don't get too crazy in the cooking department, but sometimes you will put something together. And my favorite type of cooking is crock pot cooking. And I just love to just be able to put stuff in this crock pot, put it in there, and I set it and forget it, like the old infomercial. Set it and forget it. All right, we're approaching 5 minutes, and now it's saying I'm gonna have to add this stuff, and they're saying also that it's gonna stick. So that's why I have orange juice on standby here to help. It says it will help deglaze the pan and coat everything with the flavors of the spices. The spices will stick, so add orange juice and stir. So there we go. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit this now. Stop. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do this now because I don't want this to burn in this pan. can smell that curry powder. Don't set the place on fire, Jim. Don't set the place on fire. There you go. There we go. Now we got some liquid in there. That little browning ain't gonna hurt anything at the bottom of the pan. We don't care about that. But now we've got all those spices. Boy, that smells good. That curry powder, the turmeric, cinnamon, cloves, pepper. Or you're supposed to have red, or what does it say? Red pepper? I forget what it was. Cayenne pepper, a pinch, which I don't have. I don't have any cayenne pepper. All right, so what's next? All right, so once all this is like this, add the stock. Let's add the stock to it, 6 cups. My GoPro here action going on. 6 cups, I measured it out. 6 cups of stock right there. There we go. All right, add the stock. Chickpeas. 1 can of chickpeas here. People ask, oh, where do you get your protein? Things like this, chickpeas, lentils, high in protein. But then again, you have to ask yourself, have you met anybody who has had a protein deficiency? I haven't heard of anybody. Anyhow, let's get these lentils in here. And there's no rocks or anything like that in there. Okay, lentils, tomatoes. I'm only going to use half of this can. Approximate. It's not exact science. I'm going to use, yeah, that's about, there we go. Get that in there. There's that. And making sure you guys can still see me here. And here's my sweet potato action going on in there. Throw that in there. And let's see what else. So add the stock, chickpeas, lentils, tomatoes, and sweet potato, and bring to a boil. All right, let's crank the heat up on this. Here we go. Old school. Old school. Old school going on right here, man. All right, so what's going to be the next step here? It's like flying a helicopter. You always got to be a couple steps ahead. You don't want to be hanging on the horizontal stabilator. So what's the next steps here? Let's see. Reduce the heat to maintain a gentle simmer. Cover and cook, stirring occasionally until the lentils and sweet potatoes are tender, so about 25 minutes. And then we'll add the vinegar, Swiss chard, which I don't have Swiss chard, but I do grow Swiss chard in the garden, but I'm going to use a combination of spinach and some kale is what I'm going to use. And just using what I have. And then I'm going to throw that in there, simmer for 2 minutes until the, well, for me, it would be until the kale is softened. There you go. All right, folks, I'm going to let this thing boil here. We're going to simmer it, and we'll finish this thing up. Okay, it's been about 25 minutes, and the sweet potatoes and the lentils are done. They're soft in here. I put it on the back burner so it would simmer with the smaller burner on it. And I put the 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar in there. And now I'm going to put my greens in here. And I was reading the recipe, and it says that that you can substitute the veggies with any bean, lentils, greens, or any other vegetable that you want. So this is one of those recipes that you can change up to where you want it. Yeah, a little lighting. There we go. So I'm going to let that now cook until the greens, the spinach, and my, what do you call it, kale is done and softened in there. Let that cook some more. And yeah, and our stew is about done. Smells wonderful. I'm just going to put the lid on that. And if you're asking, Jim, where are you getting that recipe from? Well, it's out of the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook by Ann Krill Esselstyn and Jane Esselstyn. And they are the wife and daughter of Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And he works over, well, he's retired now, but he is known, Caldwell Esselstyn. He is known at the, as a heart doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. And he was able to, one of the few doctors that was able to reverse heart disease through diet alone. And he has proved that you can reverse your heart disease, that you don't necessarily need the surgeries and the statin drugs. And by switching over to plant-based diet, your body will heal itself, and you can reverse a lot of the things that you've got going on in your body. And so this has got a lot of wonderful recipes in it. What is that? Savory smoky oats, all oat waffles. You know, it breaks it down by breakfast. You've got some lunches where I talked about the sandwiches with the hummus and the vegetables. And you can be creative on how you want to make these sandwiches here. Sometimes I can just make a sandwich just out of tomatoes and bread alone. And I like this Ezekiel bread that you can find in the frozen food section of your grocery store. It's a very good bread and just a few ingredients in it. And so you can see carrot dogs. These are actually pretty good. I've actually have made these where you steam the carrots and your hot dog buns, and you can, whatever vegetables you want, mustard and whatnot, sauerkraut or whatever you want to put in that thing. And it actually is a pretty good meal there. You can make a good sandwich out of that. And but yes, a lot of great recipes, more soup recipes here. Terrazan soup. Yeah, look at all that. And then I decided to do the chickpea mashed potatoes. I'm a big fan of the mashed potatoes, gravy, mushrooms. That's a meal right there for me. And so yes, so there you go. You can make your own dressings in here. And there's many more recipes out there that for those sloppy joes using lentils. That actually looks pretty good. I've made burritos with lentils already. Yep, I have done that. Smoky oat bean burgers. Look at all that. Things that you would have never have known. Asparagus mushroom pie with lemony cheesy sauce. Yeah. I bet you that's frickin' good. Tomato chutney over caramelized onion hummus pizza. I bet you that's good. Yep. I have discovered since being on this diet, foods that I never had before. And so that's been kind of cool, discovering all these new foods that I never ate before ever in my life. Look at that. Now it's looking like a good stew. See the lentils in there, you got your chickpeas in there, the chunks of sweet potato in there, the greens, the spinach, the kale, all in there with all those spices in there. Look at that. And there you go. A nice stew that I'll just let that continue to simmer a little bit more, just to kind of just get it, make sure it's good and done, and then, but I bet you it'd be better tomorrow after it sets. But we'll get a bowl of that and try it out and have that for my dinner tonight on this cold Ohio evening. And the weather's calling for 5 degrees and -7, single digits over here in Ohio. So this is perfect for cold, snowy days here in northern Ohio. All right, everybody. Here it is, the finished product. The Middle Eastern chickpea stew. And I've got my farro here that I made earlier in my Instapot. I got some cilantro that I cut up. I can sprinkle on top. I like cilantro. A little bit of bread. And let's try this. Let me get my camera adjusted here. Pardon my table. My table acts as a desk sometimes too. But yeah, let's try this. First time I made this, I think I mentioned it. So this is a new stew. But yes, you got the lentils, garbanzo beans in it. I've got the kale, spinach, sweet potato, all the spices that I put in it. Let's give it a shot. And it is hot right now. It is hot. Very good. Very, very good. Oh yeah. And I can see this being better a day or two later. Very hot. Everything's nice and tender. Delicious. Got my bread, my farro here. I can put in with it, mix it in. Got the bread. I can dip that in there, and I've got a meal here. So thanks for joining me on my culinary adventure here in Jim's kitchen. Appreciate it. Hope you got a little something out of that, give you an idea of whole foods, plant-based eating. And it doesn't have to be boring. You don't just have to eat plain white rice and beans all the time, but there are flavorful meals that can be made so many different ways, and have good, nutritious meals that aren't going to make us sick or clog our arteries, but are actually going to benefit us and nourish us and feed our gut, and with all the nutrients and the vitamins and everything that's in all these natural foods. I believe, personally, is the way to go for longevity and good health and taking care of ourselves as best as we possibly can. So Anyway, thank you for joining me on this, and I'm gonna, as the snow continues to fall here, I'm gonna eat this up and enjoy this meal, and after that I'll upload this video for you guys to see. So anyway, again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Great video suggestion, appreciate that.